What is the average play of a dungeon crawler board game? That's what I want to explore in this vlog. And if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, or if you're new to my channel, under the Board Gaming Tactica playlist, you know that I love dungeon crawlers. And it's the perfect combination as a board game enthusiast who is both a completionist with poor impulse control. Just when I think I'm done, just when I have that ultimate crawler, something else comes out and it needs to happen. So from that experience of playing multiple and enjoying multiple dungeon crawlers, the formula for a dungeon crawler is exploration, fighting monsters, hopefully miniatures, lots of miniatures, and leveling up, getting gear, getting loot. And loot and leveling up, there's various combinations of that. But that is the formula, the backdrop for the quest, whatever that is. Go and find an artifact, defeat a boss monster, make it to the exit. Within that, how long should that play? Now, there are certain dungeon crawlers that are epic, that are campaign-based, that are deliberately designed to play over multiple sessions for hours and hours and hours. And then there are other dungeon crawlers that, of course, there's going to be some sort of backstory, but they can play relatively quick, depending on your gaming group, depending on the preference. There might be one or the other. But in my opinion, my experience, whether we're talking about a campaign or just a single type scenario, I think about an hour and 15 minutes, somewhere around there. That gives you enough of the flavor of the formula. Hey, we're exploring this stuff, we're uncovering, we're building a dungeon, we're seeing where things go, while at the same time having some different fights, trying out some different tactics, and maybe gaining some gear. If it goes beyond that, it starts to become a grind. If it goes shorter than that, can it go shorter than that, then I think it's going to sacrifice some of those other pieces. Now, I want to framework this with a couple of dungeon crawlers in my collection. Some are currently in print. Some are currently out of print. Things that do well. If we look at Descent, first edition. This is a massive dungeon crawler with exploration and control of the monsters. This type of game plays 3 to 4 hours per scenario, because not only are you exploring the dungeon, and some are pretty basic, but some are somewhat complex. On top of that, the way the monsters spawn is they are fixed locations, yes, but the Overlord can also bring in reinforcements at various points. And as the players level up, they can kind of portal out to the town and shopping and get gear. The formula works very well. But this is kind of like the TI, the Twilight Imperium of dungeon crawlers. You don't just descent. You have to plan for descent. Now, a number of years later, we got Descent 2nd Edition, which I also have in my collection. It streamlined the game, it cut things down, and it kind of gave you some magic gear, but you found it within the dungeon and used it within the dungeon. It was kind of Descent light. The dungeon was set up ahead of time and monsters were revealed as you go. This played within an hour. It could have played a little bit quicker. It was kind of like a hack and slash MMO, and it did the fighting and the exploration pretty well, but the loot was very, very slow. There really wasn't much of it at all, and the loot that you found, you didn't really need, because as you leveled up, you gained more dice to kind of do things. Now we've got Hero Quest. We had Hero Quest. We have the re-imaging of Hero Quest. No spoilers there. It's a campaign-based game, but the dungeons can be either really long or really short, because the dungeon is not revealed, and you have a square kind of traditional board game board that offers a lot of different combinations, and sometimes you need to really explore the entire board to get ideas of where there's doors. Plus there's hidden doors and secret doors and different ways to explore. Some of the dungeons are very big, very complex. So we have that where it's kind of a little bit one way or the other. So how do we get a dungeon crawler to play within an hour or so? There is one. It's currently out of print, but it's still out there in the wilds, and there's also a 2nd edition which builds on the rules. Massive Darkness is, I think, a great example of a quick play dungeon crawler that almost does everything well, because nothing is going to do everything perfectly once you put those constraints on. Massive Darkness is interesting in that the dungeon is revealed ahead of time with tiles. So exploration is a little bit light. You kind of know, here's where we are, here's where we have to go. But as you explore, there's various doors that open up to other rooms and lead to other parts of the dungeon. And the quests themselves, they do a good job of working on the fact that the dungeons are revealed, but where you need to go within them, you need to explore. So it's kind of got that middle ground. Sometimes you have to find a monster's den, and there's 3 of them located in the dungeon. So I know the footprint of the dungeon, but I don't know where these monster dens are. Other time it's recover an artifact. I know it's somewhere in here. You kind of make your way through. It's Massive Darkness is interesting in that as you defeat monsters, they drop gear like crazy. It's kind of like a Diablo-esque game. And as you defeat monsters, you gain experience that you can level up very, very quickly. Now, I know there's a campaign mode that was kind of added on after the fact, but the primary play of the dungeon crawler for Massive Darkness is to take you from the beginning to end. Now, the challenge here, of course, is by the end of the game, beginning of the game, it's weak, it's challenging. Mid-game, you've got some power, but now some other level 2, level 3 boss monsters are rolling out. By the end of the game, within the hour, you're just smashing absolute everything because you've got good gear, you've leveled up, you've got a skill tree, you're on level 3 or 4 of that tree. You're just smashing absolutely everything, cleaving through everything. But it's the end of the game. It's the last, 10, 15 minutes of the game. It gives you that juice, that feeling. That's an example of a rule set that I think does it very, very well. Now, within that framework, what do you look for in a dungeon crawler right now? What I'm looking for right now, or I find myself wanting to play in this moment, of course that switches, and then I'll be like, I want a massive campaign and I want to play this for months. I like quick play dungeon crawlers right now. I like the idea that I can bring a title to the club, the gaming group. We could sit down and within an hour to an hour and a half, not counting setup time, I take care of that ahead of time. Within an hour to hour and a half, I can get that dungeon crawl experience. What titles do that well? And do you need to have a long play dungeon crawler to truly grasp the feeling of it, convey that feeling, that narrative? Or are there good quick play dungeon crawlers out there that capture all these points of exploration, fighting monsters and bosses, and leveling up, getting gear?